This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is George Newbern, the voice of Superman.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUReview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
There is an alien among us. A superior being from a place called Krypton. Deep in the heart of the city, he watches for signs of danger. Ready to act on a moment's notice. His true name is Kal-El. You know him as Superman.
Maybe you ladies haven't heard about me.
The future of Metropolis is in the hands of the Man of Steel. Get up!
Superman.
Get up. He's gonna be busy.
I said get up.
Superman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 197 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal. With me, my good friend, good brother, the man that runs our Twitter account. That's right. It is Liam. Liam, we are smack dab in the middle of a month of Superman reviews. And after last week's legendarily bad episode, we turn the page here and look forward to another review of Superman the Animated Series this week. We have a villain team-up episode, which wasn't something that was featured too often in Superman the Animated Series, so something unique about that, but definitely some things that I think we have to talk about today. Welcome to episode 197 of the DCAU Review.
That is right. As you mentioned, we are reviewing yet another episode of Superman, and it is, in fact, a supervillain team-up as we bring you the Livewire and Parasite duo in this week's episode, where we're reviewing a Double Dose.
That is right. And before we get into our four categories, talking about this one I feel like was another one of those Superman episodes, and I don't know what it is. That whole second season, maybe it was just they rotated that season so heavily, but this is another one of those episodes that we either had on videotape and saw a whole bunch, or they, put it into heavy rotation at some point, because man, I pretty much knew every quip, every beat for beat story plot point here. And let's get into that as we do. But before we do, we have our official Imdb synopsis brought to you by the Pod Tower. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the Pod Tower at youtube.com/the Pod Tower. Not only will you get our full catalog of episodes, but you'll also get amazing content from other DCAU content creators. Liam, with that, let's get into today's IMDb official synopsis.
That is right. This is for the episode A Double Dose, which is written by Hilary Bader, directed by Yuichiro Yano, with music by Harvey Cohen and animation by Coco and Dong Yang. And that synopsis reads as such. Livewire escapes from prison, eager to attain revenge on Superman, something that she hopes to achieve by teaming up with the Parasite.
Okay. It leaves some stuff hanging there.
I feel like that's accurate in that there isn't really much of a plan to this. We can get into our little recap that we do here, but we open up with there's like a janitor walking through we quickly understand is a prison. We see that he is mopping the floors back near Livewire's cell, and of course he's a real idiot, and he didn't mind the signs despite a security guard pointing them out that you're not supposed to have anything electronic on you when you go back towards Livewire's cell, but he lets her listen to some music on his Walkman. You see, kids, a Walkman. we have to explain Walkman, then we have to explain what a cassette tape was.
Hey, cassette tapes made a weird comeback like a couple years ago. I think most people know what a cassette tape is these days. 13 Reasons Why we have that to blame for that. So
there you go. but yes, using a little bit of juice she's able to drain from the batteries of the Walkman, Livewire is able to escape and wreak a little havoc once again, as we see Lois and Clark, or actually it's just Lois because Superman is there, at a press conference with the SCU. Dan Turpin's talking a big game about how they're going to take down Livewire, and Livewire shows up, and this is what this is one of the first moments of what just becomes a very horny episode.
I would say the horniness started way back with the janitor. Like there was some subtle Livewire uses her sensuality for sure in that scene to try and lure him in.
Hey, Mr. Clean. Yo, Rapmaster Danny. Hey, stupid!
Huh?
I love a man who knows his limitations. What you listening to?
My Walkman.
Sounded like Voodoo Connection. Ooh, I'd sure like to hear a cutoff of their new album.
I don't think so. I'm not even supposed to be talking to you.
Yeah? You're not even supposed to be listening to music, but you are. Wait, don't go. Talk to me. It's so boring in here, so lonely. I've been waiting for someone like you to come along, someone to help me shake things up a little.
What do you want me to do?
How about a little music for Livewire, just to get me in the mood?
Sure, why not?
She uses some euphemisms to try and infer that she's looking for a quote unquote good time with the janitor. And then, it just kind of goes downhill from there.
Yeah. So she appears at this press conference. She plants a kiss on Dan Turpin and like fries him while she's doing it. Surprised Dan Turpin didn't turn to ash then. He had It was like a Final Destination thing. When he didn't die here, his fate was sealed, but he needed to die in some sort of violent energy blast still to come. But yes, that bleeds over into a fight between Livewire and Superman. Livewire looks like she's getting the upper hand before Superman is able to throw one of her weaknesses the same way he defeated her in their first battle by unleashing a little good old H2O on her, and she retreats and then kind of figures that she needs a new plan if she's going to take down Superman, and decides that she needs to recruit some help.
That's right. And she's very clear with what her plan is. She wants justice, revenge, and Superman's life is what she declares that she's after. So in order to accomplish this, she heads over to Stryker's Island and visiting one Rudy Jones, aka the Parasite. And as Rudy is watching what appears to be reruns of David Letterman, perhaps, or a David Letterman knockoff, we get Livewire appearing in his cell. And she begins to pitch her plan to him, so to speak, a team up, as it were, offering a partnership. And once again, sort of using sexuality as a way to sort of lure Rudy in, because, of course, Rudy's been cooped up here and he's probably all by himself. And she plays upon that.
Okay, folks, let's see if he'll... By golly, he's really doing it. He's drinking milk out of his owner's mouth.
Bow wow, Rudy.
Huh?
Is this the bone they threw you? A big TV? How'd you like to have some real laughs? Poor little Parasite. I've been where you are. Locked away in a cell. All alone, no one to see, no one to touch, and all because of Superman.
Superman.
But we could take care of him, you and I. And then, when we're done, maybe I'll give you a little taste. Of my power, I mean.
Yeah. Sure, whatever you say.
And she even offers, and I excuse the phrasing, but this is a direct quote. She says, I'll even give you a little taste of my power, and quickly finishes the sentence there. But yes, Rudy is all but too eager to join her and attempts to get a bite out of her, so to speak, with his attempts to touch her and zap her powers. But she's quickly rejects him and decides that they needed to escape. On the way out, they walk down the hall, and of course, a female in what appears to be an all-male prison, or at least the male sector of the prison, draws quite a bit of attention from a lot of catcalling men. And it's at this point that Livewire does actually a pretty funny, hilarious stunt. All of these guys are up against the bars and grabbing onto the bars and catcalling, and she sort of grabs one of the bars herself and sends a shockwave, pretty much frying, I don't know, 10 to 12 inmates at that point. And at that point, they decide they need to escape Stryker Island, and in order to do so, Rudy's going to jump in a police boat. And Livewire, who we don't really know how Livewire got to Stryker's Island or how she gets off of it. I assume like there are power lines on the island, but you don't really see, do they connect to the land someplace? Like, do they stretch that far over the water, do you think? I didn't quite get how she got there and then how she got off the island.
She first appears like in Parasite's television,
right?
And she does seem to have, it's not just like lightning powers. She can go into a power grid and then like appear on a screen and like amplify her voice and all this stuff. So maybe that's like she went back into the TV and then like transmitted herself out through like satellite radio waves or something. I don't know. Livewire is kind of one of those characters, I feel like, where they just kind of make up her powers as they go. But it does give us a narrative excuse to sort of split them up. And as Parasite is starting to get away, there's a bit there. Clark and Lois are alerted to a commotion coming from Rikers Island, and Clark, using his X-ray and his telescopic vision, is able to see that in fact the Parasite is escaping on a boat. And so Superman comes into action, and we'll certainly talk more about this in visuals, but this is maybe the most fun part of the episode for me, where Parasite is in the boat, and then all of a sudden the boat is lifted out of the water. He's trying to get a grab of Superman, and even uses like a shotgun to blow a hole in the bottom of the boat to try to get at him, but Superman just kind of tips it and keeps him sort of off balance. It's at that moment that the Parasite notices a shark swimming near the surface of the water, naturally, and jumps into the water. And speaking of powers just being kind of whatever, Parasite absorbs. Now, we have seen him do this to like a cockroach before, but it didn't imply to me that he would gain the abilities of
a cockroach.
Yes. But here he absorbs something from the shark that allows him to breathe underwater and swim as fast as Superman.
That was my question. I was like, what powers did he suppose he has gills, or that he's able to breathe underwater without gills, and he can swim extremely fast? You think he grew like really sharp teeth in his mouth too, or something like that?
That would have been cool.
Yeah, that would have been a cool visual, and probably would have mimicked what he looked like in the comics at that time. That would have been an explanation for that. But no, they didn't go that route. They just went the breathing underwater and swimming really fast route.
That's right. So Superman is kind of continually keeping his distance, trying to avoid getting grabbed by the Parasite. There's some debris and dust kicked up under the water, and sort of in the confusion, Parasite is able to swim away and escape into some sort of sewer tunnel, and that's sort of where we get towards our final battle here. But first, we kind of have one more scene where Livewire and Parasite we begin to see that there's some holes in this partnership.
Yeah. So at that point, as they're sort of laying out the plan, we notice that Rudy is sort of reaching out in an attempt to touch Livewire, and she again tells him to back off. It's unclear. I mean, you can kind of read between the lines. It's I don't know whether or not you can 100% say that Rudy is out to just get her powers at this point, and that makes, we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get to our scores, but it makes the whole episode extremely uncomfortable for me. But so he keeps trying to reach out to her and touch her, which obviously would give him her powers at that point. She continues to fend him off and tell him, literally at one point she says, when I say no, no means no. So she continues to reject him and make sure that he's well aware of the fact that she does not want her touching him or him touching her. So she shocks him a couple of different times, even to the point where it appears she sort of knocks him loopy right before she says, hey, this is the plan. I'm out of here.
So, that's the plan, my purple people eater. I force Superman into your grip. Then you drain away his powers, leaving him just conscious enough to watch me deliver the final blow. Ugh, you smell like fish.
So, hold your nose.
You can look, but don't touch.
Don't be afraid. I know how to control my power.
That's what they all say. You stupid fleas! I'm pure electricity! 186,000 miles per second! If I say no, it means no! Now, don't stay up too late, Rootster. Remember, we gotta stay charged for the S-Man. Ciao.
And that's where we pick up the next part of the story, which is, of course, there's a rainstorm in town, a lightning storm. Why wouldn't there be when Livewire's around? But this flashes to the Daily Planet, where Clark is sort of sitting there watching out the window and looking longingly, I guess, somewhat trying to strategize as to how he's going to defeat this pair of villains. And that's when he's struck with a brilliant idea, thanks to Lois, who is suiting up in a very fashionable plastic raincoat, might I say, complete with a belt. Like not a lot of times you see a belt ensemble going along with your plastic raincoat. But this, of course, gives Superman a brilliant idea. We flash once again to the reunited Parasite and Livewire, who are at some sort of, I guess, some sort of electrical grid or, gas and electric plant or something like that. Mm-hmm. They've broken in, and Livewire is once again ready to feast, which leads us sort of to the culmination of our episode here in the electrical plant.
That's right. As they are sort of preparing for Superman to arrive, he does speak his name and he shall appear. But speaking of all this sexuality and innuendo in this episode, Superman, teaching an important lesson here. He wraps it up. He wraps it up, folks. Head to toe in plastic here. No, doesn't want to take a chance. Doesn't want to take any.
Livewire points it out too. She says, "Look, the Boy Scout brought protection."
That's right. Just very horny episode. But yeah, so which is also raises another interesting question for me, because I understand the idea is that the plastic doesn't conduct electricity, so Livewire's powers aren't as viable against Superman. But like Parasite runs up and grabs him, and he's like, "Oh, I can't absorb his power. He's covered." So, but like Parasite can absorb through other clothing, because he does that all the time,
right?
Including in this episode several times. So is it like specifically plastic he can't absorb? Was it like some sort of chemically treated plastic that like Star Labs whipped up from that was also anti-power absorption for some reason? I just like to know.
No idea.
For whatever reason, the Parasite can't quite get through to absorb his powers. So he's it looks like things are going bad for our pair of villains here. But Superman tosses Parasite into a box, and there's some canisters of liquid nitrogen. Of course, a real Nuns and Dynamite moment here. Thankfully, there's a case of a couple of tanks of liquid nitrogen. Parasite throws one at Livewire's request, which she breaks open, and it covers the Man of Steel in ice very quickly. He breaks out of it, but of course, the ice also breaks open his protective seal, and that makes him vulnerable to both of our villains here as he gets knocked down by Livewire. And then as Parasite begins to absorb his power, we once again see Livewire and Parasite sort of butting heads, and she's yelling at Parasite not to knock him out. She wants him to be conscious when she kills him. And as it appears that Superman is done for, we get sort of a very sudden moment here and a very sudden betrayal, though, as you mentioned, Cal, it had been set up in that previous scene. But all of a sudden, Parasite's decided that why let Superman die when he can keep feeding off of him? And hey, why just feed off of Superman? He could be feeding off of Livewire too. So he grabs her, and in what is without a doubt maybe the most skin-crawling line of an episode, tells Livewire, "You've said no to me for the last time."
That's it! Brain him! Not too much, idiot! I want him left standing!
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, Blue Boy, this has been a long time coming. Get ready to snap, crackle, and pop. Hey, what do you think you're...
I want him alive so I can keep feeding on him. And you too. You said no to me for the last time, baby.
Yep. Yeah. It's not a fan of the writing of some of the lines in this episode.
Just want to point out, a woman wrote this episode.
Yes. We will point that out. Miss Hillary J. Bader did indeed write this episode. But yes, so he drains her of her powers at that point. So now not only does he have Superman's powers, he has Livewire's powers. He grabs a steel beam, wraps it around Livewire to keep her contained. And in this process, Superman is able to make a remarkably quick escape up several flights of stairs somehow, despite not having his super speed or strength at this point that we know of. He wanders up the stairs and hurls a janitor's cart. A lot of janitor play in this very last scene here, but hurls a janitor's cart down at Rudy, who blasts right through it with some electricity, and then corners Superman in an office. They're now in an office. I don't know why there's an office above the electrical plant. Maybe that's common. I don't know. But there's an office up there.
A place to do the paperwork.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. So they're in the office at this point, and there's cubicles. And he backs Superman into a corner with actually a pretty hilarious line where he's like, "Janitor's closet, dead. It's a dead end, Superman. Trust me, I know." Which of course is a callback to Rudy's original episode, where he was of course a janitor in that episode. So was a pretty hilarious line. That was good. I actually like that one. Mm-hmm. Superman pulls out a mop and begins swinging it at Rudy, who of course mocks him and decides to use his heat vision at that point to try and melt it. It catches or maybe it was a electrical blast. I don't remember. One of those things happens and it sets the mop on fire. Superman, of course, using his brain, because his brain is still his most powerful weapon at this point, lifts the mop towards the ceiling, and just as Parasite realizes what he's doing, it's too late, as Superman has set off the sprinklers. Superman jumps back, closes the janitor closet door, and we get an actually pretty brutal scene that we'll talk about in visuals of Rudy just being shocked pretty much almost to death, at least to the point where Dan Turpin refers to him as quote unquote oatmeal. So that's the end of that. We get a final scene of Superman outside of the plant, as I mentioned, with Dan Turpin remarking that Rudy will never remember anything again, pretty much. Livewire is shouting at him about what an idiot that he is and that they could have had it all, and he ruined the plan, as she also is hauled off to prison. And Superman flies off into the night, regaining his strength, saying that it's a pretty nice night for flying. All right, so that's the end of our recap for this week. I guess we can get into our plot here. We sort of discussed it along the way. It's a very uncomfortable episode, and that made it very difficult for me to score this one. I think the concept of the episode is interesting. I don't recall too many team ups. I think, you have the episode, the crossover villain episodes with Bizarro and Mr. Mixius Spitlick. You have, some of the earlier episodes where you have Metallo introduced and Lex is involved. But some of these major villain crossovers here that present, I think it gives you an opportunity to make the threat bigger to somebody that is pretty much impervious or almost invulnerable to almost everything. So when you have two threats coming at Superman at that point, it definitely raises the stakes. With that being said, watching this as an adult now and picking up on some of the very awkward innuendo that we've already mentioned and some of the seedy behavior that they wrote for Parasite, who I didn't feel was like a super creep in those first couple episodes. In fact, the last episode, I felt like the Rudy character was sort of redeemed a little bit. If you remember, he sort of ended up helping, trying to help Superman locate wherever this bomb was and all that, which you can hear in the archives at DCAUreview.com. Two's a Crowd is that episode. So yeah, I don't know. I was very conflicted because I don't like the episode based on some of the creepy undertones, but I do like the concept of the villain team up to try and raise the threats against Superman.
No, I think that's fair. My general thought, other than echoing most of what you said about the tone of especially the Parasite character in this, it's also just, I think, paced a little bit oddly. Like it's very kind of by the time Parasite is broken out of prison, we're like 12 or 13 minutes into a 22-minute cartoon. So it feels like there's a lot of setup here. We do the live wire breaking out, and then she attacks Superman and he fends her off. And then we get her breaking Parasite out, and then we get Superman versus Parasite in the ocean. And then he gets away. And then we finally, by the time we're actually seeing the two villains sort of team up, it's the end of the episode. So it feels like it was just paced a little oddly to me, of almost like as slow of a pace as it was, you'd almost would have thought this would have been like the first part of a two-parter or something.
Yeah.
Not that I necessarily think this had like such strong legs that it needed two parts, but almost like it could have ended with Parasite taking both of their powers, and then maybe part two is some sort of strange Superman and Livewire team up or something for where they have to put aside their differences to stop the Parasite or something like that. I think maybe there's a concept in there, like either if they'd gotten to that point where Parasite betrays her quicker or something, maybe that could have been interesting as well. But yeah, overall, I think, the basic idea of the supervillain team up, it's fun. We'll certainly have, good things to say about it in visuals and some of our other categories as well. But overall, I felt it was just a little uneven and slow moving, not to mention, as we mentioned, some of the more uncomfortable moments. So I ended up settling on a 4 out of 10 for plot.
Yeah, I went just a tick higher. I went 5 out of 10. I can definitely see that the pacing thing, and that was as soon as you started saying that, I was like, man, yeah, maybe not necessarily that this had to be a two-parter, but I think you could have written things a little bit more and not had the culmination of the episode feel as rushed. And the action part, you don't really get all of that much of the two villains taking on Superman at once for very long. It's a very split second interaction. And then, Rudy turns on Livewire. So it's a very quick moment where the two of them are sort of battling him 2-on-1. So yeah, that could have been paced differently. So either way, from both of us here, not a great plot score from either one of us here. So let's move on to animation and visuals here, Liam. We will talk to see if they will get a better score in this category. As you mentioned, Coco responsible for the animation here. This episode written by Hilary J. Bader, as we mentioned. So this episode, what do you got with visuals here? What stood out to you?
Well, one thing is this episode has the benefit of coming after maybe the worst looking episode we've ever reviewed last week. So it
truly was a breath of fresh air.
Yes,
am I right?
When I saw Coco and Dong Yang as the animators, I was like, oh, thank the good Lord above that we're a little bit back to normal this week. And yeah, I wish maybe again when you have these two supervillains teaming up, you would have maybe expected a more like epic final battle than we get. I do think there's some fun stuff in the as mentioned, that parasite escape sequence where he's on the boat and Superman lifts it out of the water, and then he shoots the bottom of the boat with a shotgun so he could try to reach through and grab Superman, and then their fight under the water. I really love, and it's pretty consistent throughout the show, but I really love the coloration whenever they're underwater in this show. Like it's really interesting to me. I really like it's very like muted and fun. It kind of has this blue hue over everything. Superman and trying to sort of play keep away with Parasite in that sequence, and then going down and finding like a sunken ship. He probably put the ship there. As we've noted, every body of water in Metropolis is Superman's personal dumping ground. But he takes like the like a pole off of the ship and starts swinging it wildly at Metallo and Parasite, and we get the sequence, and all this sort of dust gets kicked up, and Superman's trying to look through it, and just the fluidity, I think, of how like Parasite, especially because he again absorbs the shark somehow, and just like fluidity of how he's moving through the water versus how Superman is moving through the water, and then them having this sort of cat and mouse game in the water. That might be the standout visual sequence for me.
Yeah, those were all great. I did enjoy that. I will say there were at times where it felt like, I don't know, the character models themselves were a little bit, and again, comparing it to last week, it's not even close. Like this is so much better than what we witnessed last week. I will say that the characters seemed a little bit more elongated, if that makes sense. Like they're a little bit wider, taller, stretched out. It felt like than maybe a standard episode. I don't know what again, that could just be versus what we saw last week and just not recognizing it. But things definitely had more of I feel like an Eastern animation feel in that way, that things were a little bit more stretched out, dynamic. But with that came some of those really incredible angles that we saw, like the part where Rudy picks up the gun in the boat. I thought that's great because the barrel literally kind of points at the screen at an angle, and you get this real dynamic pose of him pointing it towards the bottom of the screen. When he sneaks up behind Superman after right when he starts to zap the powers at the in that final scene there, it's there's a very dynamic look there. I think that the thing that stuck out for me was the whole aspect of the mop getting caught on fire, Superman kind of holding it there. There's a scene where he's kind of holding it like he's holding a torch for a second there, and it's a really neat visual. Then he kind of just twirls it up towards the ceiling, and then Rudy's face of like shock as he's kind of comprehending what's about to happen. And then as Superman rushes into that closet very quickly, the flashback of Rudy being electrocuted, and there's sort of this vibration technique that they did with the animation where the visuals itself kind of are shaking on the screen and kind of distorting, and it's moving back and forth, vibrating a little bit. It's a really neat, and paired, honestly, we don't really have a category for the audio necessarily outside of music, but I thought the audio engineers, the haunting sort of echoing of Rudy's voice as he's being electrocuted, it kind of fades and bleeds into the end of the scene. Really, really fantastic, and made that scene really, really impactful, I thought.
Gonna do this nicely, but give him an inch, janitor's closet. A dead end, Superman. Believe me, I know. Oh, now I'm scared.
Yeah, I think that you do have multiple battle scenes. So as you mentioned, you have a fight scene almost right off the bat with Livewire right in the second scene there, and there's some good back and forth there. Her visuals are always great, of course, jumping in and out of different things, and the way that they visualized her transformation from physical form into the electrical form, and then in and out of appliances. And she repeated her performance that she did in the first episode, which we reviewed in the archives at DCAUreview.com with Nathan from Superman the Animated Podcast, of course. Mm-hmm. But so you can check that one out. But where she appears on the giant multi-screen billboard size video screens. So yeah, we get that. We get her when she's in the electrical plant and sort of feeding in that final scene there. She's got her arms stretched up and her eyes are turning white. It's they did the visuals, I think, in the episode for me were probably the strong suit. And even though things are sort of spread out between the first three acts, you do have an action beat in each of those acts. And I think that really helps make the visuals feel a lot stronger than, well, anything stronger than last week, but leaps and bounds, almost like a completely different show than what we watched last week. So for all those reasons, there wasn't anything that was top notch. I thought, other than maybe the electrocution. Superman in the plastic suit. Should we talk about that? His squished face and hair, and he wasn't wearing a cape for that.
That's very funny.
He looks like a goofball, that's for sure. But honestly, how do you the fact that they were able to animate a sort of plastic skin tight suit from head to toe and kind of visualize that, how that works, like makes his hair two-dimensional as a three-dimensional character. I think that's pretty unique. So that we talked about that when we reviewed the Batman Beyond episode with 2D Man, where how do you make a two-dimensional image three-dimensional but also two-dimensional, if that makes sense. And I think the fact that they were able to sort of do that here with having his hair look flat, it looked like it's being mushed into his scalp using the suit. Probably not an easy feat, so that's probably worth an extra point to me. So for all those reasons, I ended up giving animation visuals a pretty strong 7 out of 10. What about you?
Yeah, as Dennis and Always Sunny said, Superman's hair looked small. But yes, sorry, couldn't resist the reference there. But yeah, I actually went with the same exact score of 7 out of 10. I think there's some really fun stuff in that first Parasite escape sequence, and then yes, the final battle for all the reasons you mentioned, and just the shot where after Parasite lights the broom or the mop on fire, and Superman sort of smiles slowly and then slowly holds up the fiery mop to the sprinkler, and you just get this close up of the sprinkler and you see like the water dripping off of it. There's a lot of like little extra detail here that was very much appreciated, I think, especially coming off of what we saw last week. So yeah, a good respectable 7 out of 10 for visuals from both of us.
Yeah, that was a great scene, worth going out of your way to check it out if you can find it. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. Some good musical notes this week, of course, with Livewire returning. It means we have more of the classic full band electric guitar and drums included. So there are some notes there. What did you pick up as far as music is concerned for this week?
Yeah, I loved the music in this week's episode. You obviously, as you mentioned, we have Livewire back, so we have return of a little bit of electric guitar and more traditional rock drumming throughout her sequences, and that even sort of bleeds into when Superman appears. You sort of get the Superman theme, but you still have like those the rock drums coming in underneath of it, which I thought was fun. You hear that a lot in the final sequence there. As she's trying to attack him, and he's sort of fending her off with the plastic shield. But I think what the standout piece of music for me, and it's funny because I can't remember if we've really talked about it in our previous Parasite episodes, but there's not really like a full theme for the Parasite, but there is this sort of musical refrain that plays for him. And it comes off, and it's played a lot throughout this episode, and it's played in a lot of different ways, which I really appreciate, which is sort of, it almost sounds like a little clumsier when he's trying to grab Superman, and Superman's wrapped up in the plastic towards the end, and you kind of hear it almost like clumsier as Superman grabs him and throws it up, and they meld back into the Superman theme. And then, as Livewire goes back on the attack, you hear the electric guitar move back in. So just the way they sort of melded the Superman theme, the Parasite theme, and the Livewire theme. And again, Livewire, I wouldn't necessarily be able to hum her theme, but obviously anytime you hear that sort of more traditional rock music accompaniment, that you're hearing a Livewire episode here. So just the way they sort of meld the traditional DCAU music with that Livewire theme, and the way the different character themes sort of meld into each other throughout these various scenes, I thought was very, very impressive.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the things, and I rewound it a couple of times to listen to it. But when they bring the Superman theme in, as you mentioned in that final fight scene, it's so great because it's the traditional Superman theme, but it's sped up a little bit. You get the drums behind it, which is not something you're used to. Usually setting the beat for the entire, or the bass almost for the entire performance of that song is usually the deeper sounding strings. It's the actual drums are setting the beat for the sort of the triumph of that theme. And then, like you said, it melds into other ones. And as soon as Livewire breaks out, I think it even in the initial scene where she's talking to the janitor, and she gets that first charge out of the Walkman. You hear they bring in the electric guitar right away as her eyes light up, and she gets the first charge, and she's emphatic about being excited that she's getting her first charge in a long time. So it punctuates it. It makes the scenes better, I would say. And I think it has a unique identity, which a lot of times are the things that I look for with the music. This sets it apart from the rest of it. And it includes the same, it's a theme within the themes, if that makes sense. You have the rock aspect within all of the music. So yeah, for all those reasons, I ended up giving music a really strong 8 out of 10 for this week. I think it's really, really good. Another set of music that would be great to hear in sort of isolation, to hear and appreciate some of those pieces, especially the rocked up Superman theme. Just so great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I went just a tick higher. I went 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. And again, that Parasite refrain, I think, is especially effective in that final scene as Superman's, been depowered, and, Parasite's coming after him, not only with Superman's powers, but with Livewires. And you keep hearing that refrain sort of played, and gets more and more dramatic. And then you build up that moment where the sprinklers go off, and as you mentioned, Superman runs into the janitor closet and closes the door, and you kind of see the light show, and you get this great crescendo to the music at that point, and the music kind of lays out, and you let the sound effects and the voice acting do its part. Just a really, really strong job by Mr. Cohen this week.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our final category, Liam, which is going to be voice acting. Bunch of returning characters, the usual suspects for this week, but we can definitely still break them down anyway. Let's talk about this week's voice cast.
That is right. So we have not a huge cast, as mentioned. We do briefly have Dana Delaney as Lois Lane, a couple of scenes, as well as Joseph Bologna as Dan Turpin. But yeah, most of the episode is going to be carried by by our villains of the piece. We do in fact have Lori Petty returning as Livewire, and Brian James returning as Parasite. And I will just say, I don't know if this is something in the audio mixing. Mr. James as Parasite, like he doesn't sound bad, but I feel like his audio is much lower than anyone else in this episode, and it was like distracting in some of the scenes for me when I was listening to him talk versus listening to Livewire talk. It was like just seemed like maybe that was designed as he's supposed to be more subdued in this episode, because then when he has the more directly overtly villainous turn at the end, maybe it's meant to be more dramatic, and he's really he's holding back for most of it. But it's like he's a very quiet performance from Mr. James in this episode.
The thing that I thought about it was that it felt like it was and I don't know, obviously I don't have any insight to say whether it was or it wasn't. We would have to hear it from some of the DCAU creators or people that were responsible for the show at that time to confirm or deny, but it almost felt like he didn't record his lines with the rest of the cast, because it seems like we've talked about that a lot in the 196 episodes plus that we've done here of the show, that a lot of times what made the cast seems so natural and the performances coming off was that traditionally in animation, voice actors did not perform together. You recorded your lines separately, but that one of the things that the great Andrea Romano decided to do was to have the cast together when they recorded their lines, and that kind of made it more natural, and they fed off each other's energy and made it feel, and that's why it felt like maybe he was just maybe he's supposed to be very low energy, maybe juxtaposed against Livewire he comes off less energetic, or that's the idea, or like you said, maybe it's because he hasn't fed on very much it's supposed to be, and he's supposed to sort of come out of his shell, so to speak, at the end once he has Superman and Livewire's power. Because I feel like the last scene that he does with Superman is okay, but it doesn't seem like it's the same person that we saw in the last couple episodes, so or the previous 2 episodes that he was in. So I would agree something was off about it. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it seemed like just maybe it wasn't as energetic or didn't seem as energetic for whatever reason from past performances.
Yeah, I think that's fair. On the other hand, and it might also be because he's playing off of Laurie Petty as Livewire, who is so amped up. So everything she said is about getting attention on herself in this episode. Like it's that she's perfect for this character, as we talked about with Nathan in our previous review. But yeah, so I think it's like having this very loud, bombastic character. Maybe there was an idea of sort of contrasting the 2 villains in that way with having him be more soft-spoken. But on the other hand, you do have Lori Petty as Livewire. I think doing what she does best. She's loud, she's obnoxious, she's making jokes, and a classic good old supervillain who makes bad jokes and then laughs at them. Good stuff here.
Yeah, she's pretty much a quip machine for most of the episode. Lots of quips, lots of one-liners, lots of puns, and a few dad jokes. And as we mentioned, not afraid to slip in an appropriate line here or there. So, yeah.
Speaking of lines that are just for whatever reason burned into my brain, when she after as you mentioned, Parasite's like watching a takeoff of like David Letterman, and it's like a dog is on the TV, and then she like cuts in and she just says Rudy, and it's like that line is like burned in. Like I knew that was coming. I knew exactly how she said it. Like it was just like, wow, I've seen this episode a lot. That was definitely one of those moments with Miss Petty's performance in this. It was a good memory jogger for, oh yeah, I watched this episode like 30 times when I was a kid.
Yep, definitely one heavy in the rotation. But yeah, she's fine, and I think we only get really one more performance from her we get it in technically in the new Batman Adventures from this series. So we really don't get much of her after this. So it's definitely she has the bulk of the role to do, I feel like, in the episode, but because of the way that the episode was set up, she, at no point other than maybe that first fight with Superman does she have a whole lot of dialogue strung together that doesn't feel like just a one-liner. So which is a shame, because I think that she probably deserved a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then, of course, we do have Tim Daly as Superman, who probably has less to do than he does in a lot of other episodes that we've talked about here. Nothing wrong with the old Man of Steel's performance this week, but I didn't really have many notes. Like, because it really feels like a Christopher Reeve Superman line to me, or even like maybe one of the various TV Superman over the years, even like a George Reeve or nowadays Tyler Hoechlin on Superman and Lois, like could have said this, but when Turpin asks him if he needs a lift, and he replies that no, he's feeling better, and it's a nice night for flying, and then he flies off, and we end our episode.
You bungling idiot! We could have had it all! All! Look at me, you dolt! This is the face that's going to destroy you! You hear me, eggplant?
Don't waste your breath, Sparky. Parasite don't even know who he is. It's a good bet he ain't gonna remember you.
Do you think he'll ever remember?
He's oatmeal. You, need a lift?
No, thanks. I'm feeling stronger, and it's a nice night for flying.
That's a really cute little line that I feel like, I don't know if it felt totally expected from this version of Superman, but it definitely feels like I could imagine a Chris Reeve or somebody saying that line.
Yeah, it's solid. It's a nice way to wrap up the episode and put a bow on it. Superman's going to be A-okay, and he's just going out for a nice fly. He's all right.
Yeah, that'll just bring us to our scores here. Overall, like I said, I thought Mr. James's performance was a little uneven, and then I just didn't think there was a lot to do for the rest of the cast. So not necessarily a big indictment on their performances as much as just not a lot of meat on the bone this week. So I ended up settling on a 5 out of 10 for voice acting.
Yeah, I gave it the exact same score, 5 out of 10. Just unfortunately, nothing really stood out. I think, unfortunately, working against the performers that we know have delivered pretty solid performances on their own in the past, kind of worked against them having the two of them in the same episode together with what felt a bit rushed, sort of with the time frame of them having their own time to give their own performances. So yeah, I think that sort of hampered things, is having them both on screen so much, actually, for just a 22-minute episode. So not to say that anybody did anything poor, but just nothing stood out. All right, Liam, let's wrap things up here with our final scores for this week. Totaling everything up, I end up with a 25 out of 40. What about you?
Yeah, I think we differed in 2 categories, but each being 1 point off from the other. So I too ended up at the exact same score of 25 out of 40.
All right. Now, as we talked about last week, sometimes the score, or maybe the uncomfortable nature in which we've enjoyed or lack thereof the episode, doesn't always reflect as to whether or not we recommend this as a rewatch or a must watch. Where does this fall for you? Obviously, we have returning characters, 2 pretty big staples in the Superman Rogues Gallery here, characters that return in other places in the DCAU. So this isn't their swan song. What do you say? Is the old 1 thumb up here?
Yeah, I think so. It's not particularly, as you mentioned, important to this series or even the DCAU as a whole, but you have 2 of the big time villains from this series, 2 of the most memorable villains, teaming up, and it is part of their story here, and as you said, they've appeared before and they will appear again. So yeah, I give this at least the Orange Cassidy thumb up, if nothing else, at least one sort of reluctant thumb up on this one.
crossover. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It follows up, it ties back obviously to a couple of episodes, and if you can ignore the uncomfortable nature and in which Rudy treats women in this episode and the overt horniness of most of the characters, then you might enjoy this episode. I don't know, but one thumb up. Which I guess brings us to closing out the episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this week. If you like this episode, if you're able to sort of look past the uncomfortability, or maybe maybe we're reading too much into things, we would love to hear your feedback. Tweet us at DCAU Review or comment on one of our Instagram posts at DCAU Review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Had a great week interacting last week, talking about Superman's pal. Got some great feedback from some of the fans. Thank you guys. Everybody that always comments on our stuff or tweets at us. We enjoy the interaction. Helps us feel like we're doing something here, not just talking to ourselves. So we appreciate any and all interaction that you give. If you wish to give us some more interaction, you got a couple ways that you can do that. You can leave us a review if your podcast app allows you to do so. A 5-star review is always appreciated. If it allows you to leave a little blurb telling people what it is that you enjoy about the program, we'll take that too, if you don't mind. Helps people tune in, maybe pique their interest a little bit, get some more ears on the product, as we say. Also, of course, as we mentioned, you can subscribe to us on the Pod Tower on YouTube, where you'll not only get our full catalog of episodes and bonus episodes, you also get some great content from our friends over at the Watchtower database, as well as our friends at Timm Talk, who wrapped up their podcast. Brief side note here. Congrats to the Timm Talk guys. They made it all the way through their entire watch through of the DCAU. They wrapped up Justice League Unlimited this week. So, slow clap for those guys. Huge accomplishment, and looking forward. Hopefully this isn't the end of the road for them. And we get to see some more from them, because those are just some fun guys, and you can check out their full catalog, as we mentioned, on the Pod Tower. But congratulations to those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been fortunate enough. We've had Chris from Timm Talk on our show, one of our episodes of Discuss This League, and hopefully we'll get to have him and Cameron back on sometime in the not too distant future. They and unlike us, they through basically from in episode order, went through all the shows individually. So it was a ask, and it took them quite a few years, and it's we've always talked about that. It's, as you've just said, Cal, it's always great connecting with and chatting with other fellow fans and fellow DCAU content creators like the Timm Talk boys, and absolutely hats off to them, and look forward to talking with them maybe down the road, and look forward to interacting with any other DCAU fans that we talk to on our Twitter or Instagram.
That's right. Well, Liam, we, believe it or not, have one more Saturday coming up here in the month of February. So that means, as we mentioned at the beginning of the month, this is a Superman themed month. We left that open because, hey, as we've also mentioned several times, hey, we don't have a lot of these Superman episodes. We're winding down on some of the shows that we've covered here. So with that, we introduced a new concept a few months ago, and we are going to be doing another one of those episodes next week, Liam.
That is right. We are bringing in another character spotlight episode, and since we are doing a month of Superman reviews, we thought we would pick a character that we could pick out of the Superman Rogues Gallery, and this particular gentleman does have some crossover. We will be looking at the Superman the Animated Series appearances of none other than the great and villainous Darkseid.
Amazing. Looking forward to that. Michael Ironside, of course, the voice of him, just celebrated a big birthday. We just passed a couple of anniversaries for debut of some of the biggest, baddest dark side appearances in Superman the Animated Series, some 24 and 25 year anniversaries of those episodes, maybe 26 year anniversaries. So yeah, it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a fun one. As you mentioned, we'll just be talking about his Superman the Animated Series appearances. So this will be volume 1. So of Darkseid in Superman the Animated Series for our DCAU Spotlight episode next week. And cannot wait to talk about that one. It's going to be a fun one. But until then, I'm Cal.
I'm Liam.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.